methodology issues. And I'm going to pick up where Annika left with the introduction to the way in which our HR systems in Sweden are actually modeled, the data models we use. And say some things about the limitations of that model. And we've seen the vision from national organizations, and now I'm going to be pessimistic and tell what the limitations are right up today. But also some things about the plans in the near future for how to make us a bit less limited. So this presentation is based upon the situation here in Uppsala. We use the Candy Cosmic HR system. And we have some other representatives of the Candy Cosmic customers here today. But I think it's fair to say that these limitations are kind of similar for the other HR systems in Sweden as well. So I think it's fairly correct to say that this is true for the situation in all of Sweden. We'll see if you agree with me or not. All right, so what are the limitations of our HR system today? Well, I would say the main thing is that the context and the information model are linked together very tightly. Let's say, for instance, that I have a patient and it is hospitalized, and I want to measure the body weight currently of that patient. So in the intake form, I enter the measurement for the body weight. Great. Later on, the patient is discharged, and I want now again to measure the current weight of the patient, but I also want to look back at the weights at the time of hospitalization and compare these two values with each other. So in the discharge summary, I would like some kind of label or heading like the weight at hospitalization, for instance. Now, this value, I already entered that before, so I don't want to re-enter that again. Rather, I would like to reuse this value and place it in another context, place another label or heading for that value. So I can't really do this with our current HR system as of today. We have some workarounds to achieve this. I might find a label or heading that could work for different contexts that I want to use a value for. But there's no way for me to actually transform a value to place it in another context with another interface, user interface label. I also wanted to show this. This is actually a slide that I stole from Mrs. Sprenger's presentation that I saw before the summer. So I'm very sorry for stealing your slide, and I modified it slightly, but I think it shows quite well the limitation we have. Because what you excellently described with your slide is that preferably we would have, within the different layers in a model, we will have in the healthcare model, the information model, and the layer and the application layer, you would preferably have a division between the context-independent clinical model and the context in which this model is being used, the applications, the case-specific applications. So basically what I'm saying is that this is the situation for us right now. We don't really have this separation in our HR system. The model and the context are intertwined. So another issue is that there's actually no underlying clinical model in the system. If we look back at Anna's example here with the typical HR template, we can look at one of the headers that is Swedish for the heart and circulation function. So this makes sense when you read this on a user interface. It gets its meaning there. But if you actually look at what's behind the underlying model here, I mean, this is just simply a serial number identifier. There's nothing to say that this has anything to do with circulation or the heart function. This means that different clinical professionals actually come up with very different ways to model their clinical information. And we have a very great variety of terms or headings for the same or similar concepts. I mean, it's possible for us to retrieve data from this for statistic purposes and so on. But every query we do will have to be tailor-made essentially for that particular context or that particular EHR template. There's no way to just say, give me everything that has to do with circulation. You have to specifically, explicitly state, I want this identifier and this identifier. So this is not entirely true actually. We're currently implementing in the Cosmic EHR system a limited set of open EHR archetypes. So we're getting to some limited sets of clinical data underlying this model. But essentially, the majority of clinical data is not really structured apart from what you see on the user interface. All right, so what do we have in plans for the near future then? Well, there's a local project currently ongoing where we try to standardize these clinical terms or the terminology, the headings. So essentially we want to go from our beautiful wildflower meadow of terms for different clinical concepts. And of course, this is the place we want to go. Neat rows of clinical terms. Still, we're not doing anything in this project we are not able to change the underlying data architecture. We're just concerned with the interface level here. So that's what we're concerned with here. And anyone who's tried to get clinicians to agree on their terms to use knows that this is kind of difficult. Many clinical professions have their own set of standards, which are custom-made for their profession, which they are very happy about, and they don't want to get rid of that. And these standards are not always compatible with each other. So, to some degree, I think we need to have a standardized terminology for the user interface, because clinicians need to understand each other. However, if we had a bit more separation between what's on the user interface and what's actually underneath, we might be able to be a bit more flexible about that. We might be able to sometimes map various terms to the same clinical concept and achieve a standard without needing forcing through an identical standard every time. However, because of our limitations, this is kind of difficult. So right now, we kind of have to force people to use exactly the same terms if you want to be able to make sense of things. All right. There's also another ongoing project which is actually in collaboration between the EHR vendor, Cambio, and the customers of that system. So we have one project which is concerned about data entry. This project is, we have not yet defined the exact scope of this project, but at least the requests of the customers here is something like this, to achieve a separation between the way to enter data and the way to read data in the user interface. So we have essentially a different entry mode and a read mode. So we could have something like this maybe, something phrased like a question, in this case about a heart problem, angina pectoris. And maybe you could have like a checkbox just stating yes or no about that. But then when you read this in the EHR, you would have something more similar to our traditional EHR headers, like heart problems. So that's one way of doing it. Another example could be to have some kind of visual aids when entering data, like this kind of placing a marker on a scale. And again, when reading that information, afterwards you could have a more traditional header like pain and a numeric value instead of that scale. So we're still concerned only about the user interface level here. We're not actually doing anything to change the underlying clinical model here. Another ongoing project together with the vendor we have is kind of code mapping to map EHR data to various code systems such as Snowden CT. So for instance, if we go back to the angina pectoris, if we enter that into the Cosmic EHR, we might have something like a national quality registry that is interested in that information, and they specify the Snowden CT code for that. And we would like to be able to map are gated to that code and then transfer it to the register using the Inera profile that they spoke about earlier. So this is a first step towards some separation between the interface level and the underlying clinical model. However, this is still not a complete clinical information model in the system. We know that, for instance, the same clinical data can be mapped to SNOMED CT in quite a variety of ways, actually. So that might not give us a full implementation of a clinical model. Furthermore, there's as of yet no plans to actually be able to map different terms within the EHR system to the same codes. This is a project just concerned with external systems and integration to them. But this might provide us with a framework that we could use in the future to do something more similar to the thing I wanted to do in my first slide, which is to transfer the same clinical data to various contexts. So we have some things going on. And to summarize, let's say that today we are at a level where the interface and the information model are quite tightly linked together, and we want to go to a level where they are fully independent. I would say that we're on our way to get quite a good way on the road there, but we still have also quite a long way to go. So just wanted to give you this little reality check to know where we stand today before we listen to the beautiful visions of our Dutch and Belgian colleagues. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Thomas. It's very interesting to follow it. And as you mentioned, there's quite a large gap